This July marks the 30 years anniversary since the release of the iconic movie Clueless. Now, 3 decades after the film's premiere, the clothing worn by star Alicia Silverstone and the cast is still influencing runway designers, and new generations are just discovering the 90s classic. Today, we at Fashion News have an exclusive with the one and only Mona May, the costume designer behind the movie's iconic looks. Having worked on over 70 movie and television programs, Mona May has been hailed by some as the queen of 90s movie fashion. Mona, thank you so much for joining this Fashion News exclusive. Truly, it's as exclusive as it can be. My gosh. And I have to tell you, to me, meeting you, it's a real pinch me moment because I was born 1997. So I wasn't even born when the movie came out.
Yes.
So I got to know the movie because of fashion. Me, the fashionista, me as I am, I would see it on all the references and all the mood boards. So it's the fashion that actually was like, oh, I want to watch that movie because the looks are incredible. So look, I think, you as a costume designer, you've probably done so much press about the preparation and how did it all go, and we'll get to it because I also want to hear it from you. But my very first question, interviewing a person, a costume designer like you, who's had such a viral 3 decades long success, a blessing and a curse at the same time, Have you felt ever anxious about it?
No, I never felt anxious. I feel like that movie opened the door for me. It was such it allowed me to kind of grow as an artist. It's something that put me on the map in Hollywood. And I think that it will always be the Clueless. I think for me, my signature, my one movie that is just, there's no other movies that lived 30 years and have this kind of impact on, culture, fashion. But, as an artist, you always strive to do other things. I've done Enchanted, which is such a beautiful movie. I've done so many other movies that are so dear to people. Romy and Michelle and their high school reunion. Wedding Singer, Never Been Kissed, So to me, it's not about upping myself. It really is about being the artist I am and kind of following through on this gorgeous movie that I did in Clueless. I don't want to disappoint. So of course, there's a little pressure. But I think as an artist, you always grow to, we have different stories to tell, as a costume designer, different actors, different bodies. Even if it's the same era or a different era, you're approaching it like a completely new world that you have to create.
It's now 3 decades. When you started working on it, when you got approached to do the costume design for Clueless, whoever approached you, did they tell you, look, we're working on something that we want to be an absolute classic? Did you know that was the aim?
No. And this is not how I was approached.
Oh.
It was Amy Heckling, the director. We worked together on a pilot. Pilot didn't get picked up, but we fell in love with each other. She's like an amazing artist. She knows fashion inside out, and we just were like, two peas in a pod. Remember, this is 30 years ago. There's no computers, right? No style.com to just go in there. This is big collezioni books that we have to tear the sheets, look at magazine, come together, maybe have the same pictures. Oh my God. So really, it was about the story. It was about the story about girls in Beverly Hills, rich girls. Something that we had to kind of reinvent because the moment where we were prepping the movie, it was all grunge. Nobody looked like that. Everybody was wearing Kurt Cobain, baggy pants, girls and boys looked the same. So it was the story, the script that told us, okay, these girls have money. They can go to the fashion shows in London or Paris and buy whatever they want. But then how do you tell the story? How do you find who they really are? Because they have to be authentic girls. They can't be just, fashion models walking around in high heels. You wouldn't believe that they were in high school.
Absolutely. Now, you were doing costumes for the rich It Beverly Hills girls. So how was the budget of the movie at that time? Did it look like a budget for the It Beverly Hills girls?
No.
Tell me about it.
It was a small movie. There was a small movie, maybe 25 million. It's nothing. Then was maybe a little bit more than what,
So how much do you have for the wardrobe?
I think like 200,000.
Wow.
Which is nothing, because Alicia Silverstone alone had 60 changes.
Right, exactly. She did have 59 costumes?
60.
60 costumes,
60 costumes. And then imagine I think the audience don't know that costume designer has to dress everybody. So it's the background, the kids in classroom, the kids in quad, walking around. I mean, when they came in the morning to see us, they were all grunge. So we had to change everything, pants, tops, give them hats, give them backpacks, So every person that you see on the screen, we dressed.
How was that process? Because the way we source clothes today, we have, PRs, we have
Yes.
now even websites where you can
Yes.
borrow the clothes,
Yes.
pay rental fee.
Yes.
How was that back then in 1994 or 1993? When did you
It
film it?
was-
Because the movie came out in 1995, so
Correct. So
you
it was 1994 when we were prepping. I had to be very resourceful. We didn't have the big PR machines. It was not like a phone call. And also, you have to remember, all the actors are ingenues. Alicia Silverstone was an unknown girl. She was in the, Aerosmith video.
Yeah.
And Paul Rudd never did a big movie before. I mean, so all those kids, there was not a phone call like, hey, Nicole Kidman is in the movie and please send me clothes. There was really all that machine. And there was, again, no online stuff. I mean, we had to really hit the ground.
Yeah.
And be resourceful. And, what was so interesting too, because I had to be resourceful, I think the movie was so fresh because it was not just high end and send me the clothes. I really had to go to the thrift stores. I had to go to the mall. I had to find the clothes that were future because what was on the ground was really not what we wanted to show. So, in a way, like kind of how you say mother of invention, when you had to like really dig in deep and find the things. And, for example, Dion's clothes were so cool because she was super sassy, and we could go and get some rave clothes, like vinyl skirts, the leopard jackets. They were 1950s from thrift stores, and Amy really wanted to make sure that Amy Heckerling, the director, really wanted to make sure that the movie is very feminine. Kind of against what was then happening. So, to me, I grew up in Europe. What was really important to bring something very classic. Something that the movie will not date.
Tell me, as a costume designer who's really the queen, and you worked on, 70 movies, right? Wow. When do you have more fun in your profession? When you have a big mega budget, or when you kind of have to deal with what you have to deal with?
It all depends on the creativity of the director, of the cast. And, I just finished a very small movie with the director of 13, Catherine Hardwicke, and it was tiny and it was hard, but we did clothes of kids living in Venice Beach on the street and stuff, and it was very interesting. I had like even less money, but it was so creative and juicy, and I think it's going to look amazing. I mean, Enchanted, I had $1 million budget.
Right.
That's a whole another way of working when you have sketch artists and you have hat makers, boot makers, you're creating the fabric. I mean, it's kind of a dream to have this luxury, like Wicked, for example. He had probably a few $1 million to make the costumes,
Exactly.
So you can kind of express yourself even more because the detail, the really design things. But to me, even nitty-gritty stuff is just like, I love it,
Absolutely. And I wonder when you speak, I can tell, you cannot fake passion. I can tell you're passionate. But what I see from the young kids these days, everybody wants to be a fashion designer, the creative director of a fashion house.
I know.
How did you get into costume design?
It was in the stars. I was a fashion designer. I studied in Europe, and then I went to New York and Los Angeles. And while I was in Los Angeles, I was going to fashion school, and I had friends from film school,
So your dream was to be
Yes.
the Mona May,
Yes.
the fashion designer.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Tell me
yes.
more.
But one of my friends approached me and said, hey, we're doing this little small film for our thesis, and, we need some clothes. Don't you have any clothes? It was so interesting when they sent me the script. I was hooked because it was so much more than fashion to me. It was really diving into the psychology of this person, telling a story through the clothes. When you really think of, an actor walking onto the screen, within 10 seconds, probably you can tell who they are by what they're wearing, right? Are they depressed? What's socioeconomic? Are they rich? Are they poor? Are they wearing their clothes too tight? Are they over sexy? Everything, So to me, that became the fascination and telling the stories. And, very lucky with the Clueless. Early in my career, it really put me on a map. And in the 90s, I was able to kind of really hone into my craft and hone who I am as a designer, to really create like a signature, the colors and kind of the joie de vivre that I think my movies have.
Absolutely. I think when I think of Clueless because I did watch it again for one more time last night. I was, thinking with fresh eyes and with the mindset that I'm about to interview the costume designer. So I was really, as I said, first I was drawn to it because of fashion, but then I watched it again last night with fresh eyes, thinking, what do I see costume-wise? I see silhouettes, I see color, but what really stood out to me, it is, you said your intention was to create something classic, but I'm thinking at that time also how modern everything looked. I mean, you put Calvin Klein, you put Alaya. I mean, come on, right?
Thank you. When I work on films and I dress my female actors and characters, I want to inspire women. I want to inspire women to feel good about their bodies. You know, like if you think of characters like in Never Been Kissed, Drew Barrymore, you see her kind of ugly duckling in the beginning, and then she, through the film, she becomes more confident. And in the end, you see her in the pink dress when she's a woman and she's waiting for her first kiss. It's a journey, and I want that journey, for women to kind of embrace that in a way for themselves. So I think that I'll always be feminine. I'll always be kind of inspired in a way to dress right for your body, to show women how you can dress in the best way with the right shapes.
Absolutely, and you talked about the journey. I know you have a very exciting journey because, you have a very exciting past. Your presence is very exciting, but the future is even more exciting. You have a book coming up, so tell me more about that.
Well, for the 30th anniversary, we're putting out together something with Paramount Studios, and it's a book about the costumes, about my work, interviewing the actors, talking about what happened when we were doing the movie together, how it was working together, the highlights of things, a lot of pictures. It's a coffee table book. It's really fun. It's very creative. It's, again, inspiring kids, and I think not only kids, but anyone who is interested in fashion, young or old, to really have this nostalgic moment, open the book and go, oh my God, I remember this. This was so much fun. And, I really strive to bring more happiness into the world. And I think this book, again, when you see it, it may have a yellow plaid cover, which will be so fabulous.
Lovely. I love that. Iconic.
Yes.
Will we have some sketches? Will we have some of that craft from you? Because that's what I'm hungry for. I want to see your creative journey, your creative process. And I think I can speak on behalf of all the fashion people out there. We want to get inside your brain.
Yes.
And so how exciting. And but you also mentioned interviews, so it's gonna, when you say, so in the book you'll have some interviews.
Yes, so we'll, I talked to Alicia Silverstone, I talked to all the cast, and Stacey Dash and Paul Rudd, and of course Amy Heckerling, the director, to kind of remember the times together. How interesting it was, and yeah, it was just really beautiful to kind of go back to that time. It really started all of our careers in a way. Alicia Silverstone, look at Paul Rudd. He's like the most famous star in the world, and still look fabulous. Of course, we all look fabulous. And now we have the, Clueless musical. We have so many things that just followed through on this amazing project that we all were part of.
Absolutely. I cannot wait to see your book. And I cannot wait to have it here on this little table and to introduce it to all of my friends.
Fantastic.
I am a huge fan of your work. Thank you so much for joining Fashion News.
You.
And to all of my audience, thank you for joining this super, super exclusive Fashion News with the one and only Mona May. I'll see you next time. Mwah.
Mwah. Ciao.